Taylor and Cameron stepped out of the registry office together. Today, they officially filed for divorce. "Are you in a rush, Taylor?" Cameron asked his soon-to-be ex-wife. "No, I've got the day off," Taylor replied. "Me neither. Maybe we could hit a cafe, sit down, and chat." "A date?" Right after filing for divorce, Taylor smirked. Well, Cameron hesitated. "Not exactly a date. I just don't want to go back to an empty rented apartment right now. You can stay at our place for now. Naomi's grown up and has her own family. I'm alone in 3 rooms. It gets lonely and sad sometimes." "You know, Cameron," Taylor gazed intently into his eyes, "I'm not kicking you out. You didn't have to rent a place. Eventually, we'll trade our apartment for 2 one-room ones and go our separate ways. It just felt wrong after everything I've done. Living together if we're not a family anymore," Cameron said, a hint of sadness in his voice. 4 months earlier, Taylor found out about her husband's affair from his mistress. In 27 years of marriage, she had never checked his phone or asked unnecessary questions if Cameron was late. She simply asked him tired and served dinner. Her mother had raised her that way, always advising her to trust her husband, create a cozy home, and avoid burdening him with suspicions and questions. That's how Taylor's parents lived. They recently celebrated their golden wedding anniversary. Taylor believed her life would follow the same path, a loving and faithful man for life. On that fateful day, Cameron left for work, but forgot his mobile phone at home. Taylor started cleaning, as it was her day off. While dusting the bookcase, she heard Cameron's phone ring. Thinking it might be an important call, she decided to answer. Picking up the phone, she saw a photo of a young woman and the name Eva on the screen. Taylor didn't know any Eva among her husband's acquaintances or colleagues, but she didn't suspect anything. She answered the call and heard, "Hello, I'm calling Cameron. Can I speak to him?" Taylor was slightly taken aback by the informal Cameron, as the caller seemed as young as their daughter Naomi, but she calmly replied, "Hello, Cameron is at work. He left his phone at home. What should I tell him?" "Nothing," the caller replied, then added, "Are you Cameron's wife?" "Taylor, right." "Yes, and who are you?" "I'm Eva, and I'm having an affair with your husband." "Oh, really? And for how long?" Taylor asked, trying to keep her voice steady, but as she felt the ground slipping from under her feet. Luckily, there was a chair nearby, and Taylor sank into it. "Half a year now," the girl continued, "and we want to live together. Besides, we're going to have a child. Cameron can't bring himself to tell you, so I'm saying it. Let him go. Your daughter is grown up, and my baby deserves to be born and raised in a complete family." Taylor felt her heart pounding. It seemed it might leap out of her chest. Breathing became difficult, and she couldn't think of anything to say to her husband's lover, so she just hung up. For about 20 minutes, Taylor sat in shock. She didn't cry, though the pain was unbearable. Recovering a bit, she got up and went to the kitchen for some water and a sedative. With trembling hands, she dripped valerian into a glass of water, the only sedative she found at home. "Taylor, I don't know how it happened. I didn't intend to betray you." Cameron started to explain himself as he arrived home that evening and discovered that Taylor had found out about his affair with another woman. "You didn't mean to, but you did," Taylor responded quietly, "and you even made a child." She lay in their bedroom, her legs drawn up and wrapped in a warm plaid. She was trembling, although it wasn't cold at home. Nerves. "We met 6 months ago at Zimin's anniversary when I went alone. Do you remember? You weren't feeling well, and you insisted I go by myself. I had a bad feeling, didn't want to go, but you convinced me it would be rude not to attend." "I'm to blame too," Taylor said softly, with a bitter smile. "No, Taylor, it's not your fault at all. I was just surprised at myself for not wanting to go to that anniversary. Then there was this woman, Eva. She's some relative of Zimmerman's wife. She sat next to me, asked me to dance. I thought she was just bored, being without a partner like me. Later, she offered to drive me home since she had a car. I agreed. And then, Cameron covered his face with his hands, and after a few moments continued. And then, I don't know, it was like I was possessed. She suggested we meet again. I couldn't resist. Taylor, I don't love her. It was some kind of obsession, a fling. I was ready to break it off when she told me about the pregnancy. I don't know what to do now. I didn't want to hurt you, and I don't want to leave you. You should have thought about that earlier, Cameron, Taylor replied quietly. But now you have a child on the way. Excuse me, I really need to sleep. I'm exhausted. Please make your bed in the living room. Of course, Taylor, Cameron sighed. Forgive me if you can. The next morning, when Cameron woke up, Taylor was, as usual, making breakfast. Good morning, Taylor, he said guiltily as he entered the kitchen. Good morning, sit down to eat, Taylor replied as usual and placed a plate of his favorite porridge in front of him. The unfaithful husband felt very awkward. He looked at Taylor, who was standing with her back to him, slicing cheese. His wife looked impeccable as always. Her hair was neatly styled, and she wore a nice home outfit. Only when she turned to Cameron did he see that although Taylor had managed to put on light makeup, her eyelids were puffy, and her face was a bit haggard. Cried all night, Cameron thought, feeling even more awkward and ashamed in front of his wife. He had betrayed her, trampled on everything good that had bound them, and now she was calmly, as if nothing had happened, making him breakfast. Taylor, Cameron began but faltered, not knowing what exactly to say. Cameron, Taylor continued for him, listen to me. It hurts a lot and is hard to accept your betrayal, but nothing can change now. What's done is done. Maybe it happens. I'm getting old, and you paid attention to a young and beautiful woman. Taylor, your Cameron started, but Taylor motioned with her hand, asking him not to interrupt her, and continued. We raised our daughter. She has her own life, and perhaps we've been living out of habit for a long time, not feeling the love we had in our youth. See, I even made you breakfast, because I've been doing it every morning for 27 years. Thank you, Taylor, Cameron began, but Taylor interrupted him. No, listen further. I don't want to make a tragedy out of what's happened. We're not the first, and we won't be the last, although I thought we would walk hand in hand through life like my parents. But since it happened, Cameron, you need to go too. Taylor paused, not wanting to say the name of the other woman to her, since she's expecting a child. After all, the child is not to blame. I'll try not to hold a grudge against you. After all, we had a lot of good times. And we have a daughter. A grandson will be born soon. Or a granddaughter. A grandson, they told Naomi on the ultrasound that it will be a boy. Taylor smiled weakly. That same day, Cameron packed his things and moved in with Eva. 2 months went by. During this time, Taylor and Cameron spoke a few times about finalizing the divorce, but neither of them found the time to file the paperwork. It just dragged on. Taylor sensed from her husband's voice that he wasn't particularly happy in his new family, but he didn't complain and she didn't pry. Taylor was gradually healing, mending her emotional wounds with her beloved work and spending time with friends and her daughter. Naomi often visited her mother for chats and tea. Initially, she was furious with her father and judged him harshly. But wise Taylor convinced her daughter that their father hadn't stopped being a father because of the separation. He still loved his girl and was eagerly anticipating the birth of his grandchild. Naomi softened and began calling Cameron. She even found some positives in the fact that she would soon have both a son and a younger sibling, or maybe a sister. Another month passed. One evening, Cameron called Taylor and asked if he could come over. Come over, Taylor replied, sensing from her husband's voice that something was wrong. Half an hour later, Cameron was sitting at the kitchen table with Taylor, telling her, "There is no pregnancy. Eva tricked me into leaving the family for her. It's as cliché as a bad joke, Taylor. I came home an hour early from work and caught her with a young guy. And then she spilled everything. There's no pregnancy because I'm too old for that. So she had to try to get pregnant by the young guy. Basically, I threw the essentials into a bag and left. Let me stay with you tonight, and tomorrow I'll rent an apartment. Oh, Taylor, what a fool I was, trading a woman like you for this. I don't even know what to call her." "Stay as long as you want, Cameron," Taylor said after listening to her husband. "Are you hungry? I have pasta. Do you want to?" "I do. Both borscht and cutlets. I've missed your cooking." Eva was on a diet and hardly cooked anything. Taylor shook her head sympathetically, looking at her husband. He had indeed lost weight and looked gaunt. The next day, Cameron rented an apartment, although Taylor had told him he could stay. The night before, after talking late into the night, they decided that they still needed to divorce and trade their large 3-room apartment for 2 one-room apartments. September 15, 2020. "No, Cameron, I don't want to go to a cafe. Let's go to my place, or rather, our apartment. Naomi came over yesterday, and I baked pies and cottage cheese pastries. There's a lot left. I can't eat it all by myself. Naomi didn't want to take any, saying she had gained too much weight during pregnancy. She's due any day now. How can I refuse your pies, Taylor? Let's go." Cameron and Taylor stayed up late. Cameron, who had missed his wife's delicious baking, devoured the pies and cottage cheese pastries. Taylor poured him tea. At midnight, Taylor's mobile phone, left in another room, rang. She went to answer it and returned a couple of minutes later, crying with joy. "Well, Grandpa, congratulations. Our grandson is born. 3,700 grams, 54 centimeters." Cameron jumped up from his chair, hugged, and kissed his wife, also tearing up with happiness. September 16, 2020. Kerr, a strict woman in glasses, would not soon forget this strange older couple who filed for divorce and then came to withdraw it the very next day. They held hands like young lovers and radiated happiness. Odd, strict Claire smiled after them.